there's another story formula that you can use, and it's called the 6 C's. So first, you got to give the context. This is where you kind of lay out the background of the story. And you introduce, man, let me tell you a quick story about the time this happened, okay? Then you got to introduce the characters. So my buddy and I were doing this. I was at this. Okay,
Yeah,
next, there's got to be some conflict. What is there got to be? Conflict. Because this is what gets people emotional. Oh, crap, what happened? This is what draws them in. Physically, even. Yeah. Let me tell you about the time I got punched in the face because I opened. Then there's some sort of a climax. So there's conflict that's happened, and then it all comes to a head, right? It's all got to come to a head. And then there needs to be some sort of closure. And then finally, you have your conclusions or conclusion. This is basically the moral of the story. This is where you tell people what to take away from the story. I'm going to tell Stu's story about failing chemistry. Let me tell you about the time my buddy Stu almost failed chemistry and got kicked out of the U.S. Naval Academy. So he was at the academy and was really struggling with study habits and the workload and those kinds of things. And he was super, super homesick at the same time. The problem was he was failing chemistry and close to failing some other stuff. But instead of bearing down, asking for help, and figuring it out, he kind of retreated into a poopy pants mentality. It all came to a head when he went home for Thanksgiving and was almost in tears with his mom telling her about what was going on. To his surprise, his mom looked at him and said, well, just come home. Just don't go back. And in that instant, he made a decision that I can't come home. I got to handle this. So he went back, he got the help, he dug it out, was able to pass, learned a whole bunch of new lessons, and was able to carry it all the way through to graduating from the Naval Academy. And he took that perseverance and turned that into a career as a SEAL officer. What's the moral of the story? Sometimes, and then it's whatever you want the moral to be. Do we want the moral to be never quit? Or do we want the moral to be sometimes you need to talk to somebody that you love and trust, and you need to realize you need to bear down and do so? Whatever the conclusion is you want from that story, in order to help you in the situation, you tell them the moral of the story. You don't let them come up with it on their own, but they'll feel like they came up with it on their own because of the way you tell them. So the moral of the story in this case was that Stu's mom, so the moral of the story is sometimes the people we love will let us off the hook when we shouldn't let ourselves off the hook. And the same thing holds true for you and your diet and your exercise this holiday season. Your loved ones are going to look at you and say, you know what? A little extra pie ain't going to hurt.
Live a
You
little.
got this candy, live a little. You work so hard. You work out more than anybody else. This is true. You work out more than anybody else we know. So be careful what you do this holiday season. And I like to invite you to, dude, you can make the story mean anything you want. But when you think of this in terms of context, characters, conflict, climax, closure, and then the conclusion you want them to come to.